Hello, everyone. It's Denise from Dobby Books, and today is Friday, the 6th of June. Happy Friday, everyone. I thought I would record a little bit today to kind of give you a progress report on my medieval studies. And I have to say that although the recommended texts aren't bad, but I don't know. I'm not as interested in them as I was with the Greek and the Roman readings. I just found them more, I don't know, more interesting, more stimulating, and these aren't quite doing it for me. But I've only just begun this part. They have 4 units or modules for this medieval study. And as a reminder, um, for those of you who might have missed it, I'm using the curriculum from Roman Roads Press, Old Western Culture. It's broken down into 4 years. I'm on year 3, which is the medieval world. And I'm going to read you the list of the recommended books that they're using in the series, and then I'll tell you which ones did it for me and which ones didn't. So we start with St. Benedict, The Rule of St. Benedict, Procopius, Wars of Justinian, Gregory of Tours, History of the Franks, Gregory the Great, Book of Pastoral Rule and the Dialogues, St. Patrick, The Confession of St. Patrick, and Letter to the Soldiers of Coroticus, Adamnan of Iona, Life of St. Columba, then Anonymous, The Voyage of Brendan, another anonymous, Beowulf, The Venerable Bede, which is the ecclesiastical history of the English people. We have Einhard, Life of Charlemagne, Asser, Life of Alfred, and finally John of Damascus, The Fount of Knowledge. Again, this is a curriculum that is based on a Christian foundation, so they are emphasizing a lot of the readings of the church. Anything that has that religious aspect to it is what is emphasized, and maybe that's why I'm not so into it. I don't mind church history. I don't mind reading some spiritual texts, but I think this time around, I don't know, I'm feeling like, I really don't want to read this. I would rather read something else, fully aware that in the medieval times, that because Rome had fallen and there really wasn't a governing body that the people could rely on, and because of that, the church stepped in to try to provide that. I understand that part and why much of the readings for the medieval times would involve a lot of religious leaders and would have that religious influence. I think that I'm okay with. I'm okay with it. I mean, I grew up with this. But I don't know, I guess I kind of feel disappointed with these readings that have come so far. So The Rule of St. Benedict, that classic, I don't think I get tired of. In fact, where do I have it? They provide a text in their curriculum, and I wanted something a little more modernized. So I'm reading this one, which is a paraphrase and introduction by Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove. It is The Rule of St. Benedict. But I read in a previous video that I did, I read an example of this one, and I compared it to the older one. And this one is just nicer. And it also applies it to our modern day. So it's more relatable, right? So I'm enjoying that. Then the next reading is Procopius, Wars of Justinian. Now that was interesting. Although I'm not a lot into wars and battles and whatnot, I kind of get bogged down in all that. Procopius is very interesting. In fact, he also wrote something called The Secret History. I'm going to get that one. And I know Penguin Classics has that. The Wars of Justinian, I've learned that Procopius's writings of the wars, I believe, comes in 3 separate volumes Penguin Random House does not publish it. It's another publishing house. I don't remember what. So will I ever get that? I don't know. I may just get volume 1. But I found that interesting. That was an interesting reading. We were only given we were given excerpts, some of that book. Obviously, it's a lot of information, so they couldn't give all of it. And of course, having to also remember this curriculum is geared towards high schoolers, so I can understand them not being able to include some information, but they can include others, right? And then we have Gregory of Tours, the history of the Franks. Now that was also interesting. That was good. And the ones we weren't given the whole text either, I don't think. I remember some parts of that, but that is something that I would like to get my own copy of and go back and read through that. And this one, I'm sure it had to be translated. The one that I have here on my tablet is translated by Ernest Brehaut, Brehaut. And I found it interesting. So that did good. So I want to get that one on my own. Then we go into Gregory the Great. Gregory the Great is known in the Catholic Church as Saint Gregory the Great, a pope. This program that I'm using just refers to him as Gregory the Great. They place him as one of the bishops of Rome, but not a pope. It's coming from a very Protestant perspective, whereas the Catholic perspective will say, no, he was Pope Gregory. And the Book of Pastoral Rule was nice, but that's geared more towards pastors, priests. And that was nice to read. But I know why they put it in here, because it deals with, Christian virtue and how one should strive to be a good leader and provide a good example. I can understand that with the audience that it's geared toward. I was like, okay, that's nice, and I wanted to move on to something else. And then the second writing of Gregory the Great was the Dialogues, which again had a very religious perspective to it. And I could, for me, I could read a couple of excerpts, but I just found myself bored. With St. Gregory the Great did a lot of stuff. He's the one that standardized Gregorian chant. He did an awful lot of things. So he has a lot more writings than just these, but these two particular writings that were chosen in the curriculum kind of bored me, and I just only read the excerpts that they had a question about, and I just skipped all the rest. I just wasn't into it. And then St. Patrick, the Confession of St. Patrick, which was very nice, but I only skipped and read the items that had questions, that there were questions on. And the Letter to the Soldiers of Coroticus, again. So unfortunately, the writings that they have included in this curriculum from St. Gregory the Great and St. Patrick were kind of so-so for me. I was kind of bored. And then the Life of St. Columba didn't do much for me. I know St. Columba is an important figure and part of Irish history, but I think what was kind of getting to me was, and also including the Voyage of Brendan, the way they wrote back then about religious matters, and so many, even as someone who has familiarity with religious history and religion, and I'm comfortable with it. When I was reading the reports of, miraculous things that God did, and they went to this island, and this elderly man came and told them this is the former Garden of Eden, and on, and my brain, my 21st century brain is saying, okay, are we dealing with magical realism here? That's just my cynical brain was doing that. So I had a hard time getting into it. And I wasn't, other than familiarity with those texts, I couldn't quite capture why they would use this in the curriculum, other than to teach some sort of moral. Okay. I don't know if I need that right now. It's like, you know, the audience. The audience is much, 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 much younger than me. So me as an older person wasn't quite relating to it or seeing it in the same way. So I would have liked to have had other things to read beside that. The next one I'm going to be reading is Beowulf. They have a different translation that they've provided, which I'm not crazy about. It's an older version, and I really don't want to struggle through such a long epic poem. So I have the translation by Seamus Heaney, which is a very common version that a lot of people have. I don't mind reading through. I've read through this before because I've noticed that I've circled some words I didn't know where I made comments. So I'm going to go ahead and read this one. So, and after that, we're going to be reading The Venerable Bede. Oopsie, I dropped my book. We're going to be reading The Venerable Bede, The Ecclesiastical History of the English People. I have that book. I'm not going to read it all, but I am going to read parts that interest me. That I can do. And after that, it's going to be Life of Charlemagne. So we'll see how that goes. I think I'm experiencing overall maybe some disappointment. I thought it would be just as interesting as the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans and the source texts that I read with those. And it's not. But I can work through it. I decided to check my shelf for other sources that I have for the same time period. And I pulled this one by Dr. Susan Wise Bauer, which is the history of the medieval world. And this includes more than just the Western, Western Europe and what have you. And I noticed something. I've read through this before, not the whole thing, but I made some marks in here. Hold on, it was a page that I had lots of notes in that I was actually summarizing many of the paragraphs as I went through them. And I thought, oh, wow. So like this one on Byzantium, you can see that I had written notes and I made some highlights. So I don't know. Maybe I'll read some of this. I just don't know if I'm going to read it at the same time or after I'm done. I don't know, but we'll see. So I guess this is a good second option for me, if not complete alternative, if I really want to study the medieval world on my level. This is cool. And this includes everyone. This includes China and Japan and India and you name it. And it's awesome. And all my books from Dr. Bauer, by the way, are all signed. So that's my little brag right there. And that's pretty much it. I'm kind of looking forward to finishing up this module. I'm halfway through it. In the week that I've been doing it, I'm already halfway through all the assigned reading and what have you. And I'll move on to the next section and hopefully it'll be a little more interesting for me at that point. And I'm looking at my shelf that I have my other items in. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to read that. I can't wait to read that. I don't know. There's probably very few of them that are on the reading list for this program, but we'll see. If you guys have some good suggestions for some sources that I could read, some medieval sources I could read, let me know, because I want to enjoy this. I waited long enough because I had to put everything aside for the semester, and I really want to enjoy this. So that's it, everybody. Thank you all for hanging out for these few minutes, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.